So naturally, the most pressing question for governments around the world is how to make people make babies again.
Childcare is now more expensive than rent for working families and is costing the economy more than $122 billion a year.
Why aren't people having kids anymore? Because no one has a spare $300,000. It's the same reason I haven't bought a sapphire mine recently. It's just a tad too expensive. I don't want to spend money on a kid. I freeze my bread to make it last longer. I'm cheap. Look, it's not even a joke. It's just a good tip.
Where are you on kids now?
I don't want them. Don't. No, and I'm still there. I'm 47. I don't have them.
You don't want a little Johnny?
So
Or Joanna?
that's great, and that's usually what everyone says.
So kids are not important for you?
I don't want to have kids.
You don't want to have kids. Why not?
I have no time.
No time for kids because you do so much business?
I think if you have a kid, you have to give them your whole life.
Yeah. I hate when people say, why does no one want to have kids anymore? Why would I want to have kids? That's the real question. Like my generation, Gen Z, the average salary that we make is
$39K a year.
The average cost to raise 2 kids comfortably, $233K a year. The cost to give birth, $20K. There's no free childcare, no free healthcare. You get no help. So many people don't have benefits. There's no paid time off, no sick leave. Give me one reason why anyone should.
You were told your whole life what being a man looked like. Get the job, buy the house, start the family, provide, protect, build something that lasts. That was the deal. That was the blueprint. And you held up your end. You went to work. You showed up. You tried. But somewhere along the way, the cost of that blueprint became more than most men could ever afford. And instead of fixing that, instead of making that life reachable again, governments around the world watched it slip further and further away from you. And now that birth rates are collapsing in every developed nation on the planet, now that the system is starting to feel the consequences, suddenly they care. Suddenly they want to talk about families.
Their child care expenses from their income taxes. That's a first.
What is the biggest thing that needs to change here in South Korea to make this more appealing for women?
Starting next year, South Korea will pay a child care allowance of around $530 to parents with newborns.
The biggest issue in 20 years will be population collapse. Not explosion, collapse.
South Korea has spent over $270 billion in the last 16 years trying to convince people to have babies. Their birth rate still dropped to 0.7%, the lowest ever recorded anywhere. Japan's former prime minister called it the country's last chance and proposed $22.3 billion per year. China went from punishing families for having a second child to paying them $500 for every baby under 3. Russia is paying schoolgirls to get pregnant and ban what they called child-free ideology. And here in America, politicians are floating baby bonuses and $1,000 newborn savings account, while the average cost of giving birth in a hospital can run you over $10,000. They priced you out of the life that they told you to build, and now they're panicking because you stopped building it. Let me show you exactly how deep this goes. The CDC just released its 2025 number, and they confirmed what you already feel. The U.S. fertility rate fell to 53.1 births per 1,000 women. That is the lowest point in American history, a 23% decline since 2007. Only 3.6 million babies were born in that entire country last year, and the number keeps falling. But here's the part that changes the conversation. Pew Research asks childless adults under 50 whether they plan to ever have kids.
I don't want kids anymore. Society is only getting worse and the next generation of kids are only getting worse. There's this domino effect that I need y'all to understand and see before y'all have kids so y'all understand where I'm coming from. As of today, preteens, teenagers, kids that are like 9, 10 years old going into middle school, they have no kind of entertainment that caters to their age. There's a reason why when adults do a certain TikTok and kids know that TikTok that they're doing, the kids and the adults feel like they're the same. And that is not the case. whatsoever. Children need to stay in children places. Here's the problem. Children have no other places to go because there's nothing else for them to do. There's nothing else for them to watch. There's nothing out there to help them expand their imaginations.
47% said they are unlikely to. That is up from 37% just 5 years earlier. And the reason most of them gave was simple. They said, I just don't want to. But I want you to sit with that for a second. Because in the same study, 36% said they cannot afford to raise a child. And 38% said the state of the world worries them too much to bring someone new into it. So when someone tells you they don't want kids, ask yourself this. Is that really a choice? Or is it what it looks like when someone stops wanting what they were never going to be able to have? Because there's a difference between saying no and learning to live with the word no being said to you. A Michigan State University study found that the percentage of non-parents who say they never want children doubled over the last 20 years, from 14% in 2002 to 29% in 2023. That is an entire generation recalculating what is possible. And one more number before we move on, because this one, it matters. Pew found that 64% of young women say they do not want children. For men, it is 50%. Both numbers are staggering, but that gap is telling you something important. Even the people society expects to drive family formation are walking away from it at record speed. And nobody in power asking what went wrong. They are only asking how to get the numbers back up. That is the difference between caring about people and caring about a spreadsheet. So let's do the math together. The Brookings Institution confirmed that raising one child from birth to age 17 now costs over $300,000. The median household income in America is $83,730. That means you would need to spend nearly 4 years of your total household income before taxes, before rent, before food, before anything, just to raise one kid to 17. Not college, just 17.
It actually requires an average of $250,000 to raise a child from 0 to 17. So for people who have 2 kids, that's $500,000 you're going to need in the next 17 years to raise that child. And mind you, if people are barely getting by now, how do you raise a child? Look, I'm not here to tell people when to have kids or not.
Right.
But from a business financial perspective, how do people with no money actually have a bunch of kids?
It's expensive to raise a child.
How expensive,
It's
Ainsley?
gone up 30%, actually, nearly 30% over the past 3 years. It costs more than $300,000 to raise a child in the United States.
Meanwhile, the median home in this country costs $356,000. Since 1960, housing prices have gone up 121%. Incomes have only went up 29%. A CBS News poll found that 77% of Americans believe that it's harder to raise a family today than it was for previous generations. That is not a debate anymore. That is a consensus. And nobody is sitting with you in that reality. Nobody pulls a 32-year-old aside and says, oh, I see what you're dealing with. Instead, they ask, oh, when are you settling down? They ask you, what are you waiting for? They tell you to stop being selfish, as if wanting to be financially stable before bringing a child into the world is somehow a character flaw. The men who are waiting are not afraid of fatherhood. They are afraid of failing at it. And that fear comes from watching what happened to the generation before them. I read your comments. I see the men writing, I want kids, but I can't even afford a home. I watch older guys in my family get destroyed in court. I'm good. I see, my heart wants a baby, but my bank account says no. Those are not men who stopped caring. Those are men who care so much that they refuse to do it wrong. And the difference between giving up and holding out matters more than anyone is giving you credit for. Now let me zoom out because this is not really about you at all. Governments do not want you to have kids because they care about your happiness. They need bodies, workers to fill jobs, taxpayers to fund the system, soldiers to staff the military, consumers to keep spending. The entire structure runs on one assumption, that there will always be more young people entering the bottom than old people leaving the top. In the 1960s, 6 workers paid into Social Security for every one retiree collecting from it. By 2035, that number drops to 2. And in that same year, for the first time in American history, there will be more people over 65 than under 18. Fewer people paying in, more people cashing out. And nobody restructured the system to survive that. They just assumed you would keep having children to cover the gap. The United Nations reported that more than 60% of governments globally have now implemented policies designed to influence fertility. Italy declared a national emergency. France spends nearly 4% of its GDP on family benefits. None of it reversed the trend. Because you can't bribe someone into a life that you made unlivable. A $5,000 baby bonus does not fix $300,000 in cost. A tax break does not replace a missing village. And here's where it stops making sense entirely. The same tech leaders and billionaires pushing for higher birth rates are spending hundreds of billions building AI to replace your job. They want you to produce the next generation of workers while they build machines to make that generation unemployable. They are spending billions to replace your labor with a machine and wondering why you will not create a person. Love is not a business model, but they are treating it like one. And people can feel it. And I need to be honest about something because I have never been a channel that picks side. Women are not winning this either, not even close. She was told to get the degree, build the career, be independent, and never need a man.
We are women that actually get to live on our own,
bro,
for the first time in like history.
Bro, I literally saw a girl on TikTok was like, we are the first generation in a lot of our lineage to be women to pay and paying all of our own bills without a man and no kids.
Yes, and you have the luxury to choose to do that.
This is not like, oh, this is what I want to do, and I don't need a man for it.
And
if a man comes, cool, but I don't need a man.
I don't need him for that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like once I started thinking about it like that, it really helped me learn how to be alone because I was like, in reality, I'm looking at my apartment and all this is me right here.
And she was also told that motherhood would be the most fulfilling thing she would ever do. So she tried to carry both. And a lot of women are running on nothing right now because of it. Daycare costs more than rent in all 50 states. Maternity leave can set a career back by a year. And if she decides not to have kids at all, she spends the rest of her life answering for at every holiday dinner. Census data shows that childlessness among women ages 20 to 24 jumped from 75% to 85% between 2014 and 2024. Among women 25 to 29, it went from 50% to 63%. These are not women who suddenly stopped wanting families. These are women doing the same survival math that men are doing on the other side of the table. She was told motherhood would make her whole. He was told providing would make him worthy. And neither one was told the hard part, that the system needed both of them stretched to the limit just to keep running. This was never men versus women. This was always people versus a promise that stopped being affordable a long time ago. And every argument that turns this into a gender war is a distraction from the people who actually benefit from keeping you divided. There's a kind of loss that men are not giving language for. It is not dramatic. It does not show up in headlines. But it is real. It is the slow realization that the life you pictured for yourself, the family, the home, the Sunday morning with your kids, that life moved further away every year, no matter how hard you worked. I read a comment from a man in his 70s. Retired. No debt. Financially comfortable. And he said, I will go to my grave without ever being a father. And I have some regrets about that. That man did everything right by the numbers, and he still lost something that money could not replace. That is not a success story. That is a warning.
Do you have any regrets in life?
My only regret is that I have no children of my own. I have stepchildren, but I always felt that I was too irresponsible to be a father. But as I've gotten older, I really regret the fact that I don't have any kids.
And then there's a 26-year-old I came across who worked 65 hours a week and said his only real goal in life is to be a dad. But he watched his parents' marriage collapse. He saw a friend's parent cheat, hide debt, fall apart behind closed doors. And he told himself he would never put a child through that. So he is building the foundation first, working 3 jobs, trying to get stable enough to do it right. And when people called him selfish for waiting, I need you to understand how backward that is. A man who is willing to sacrifice his 20s just so his future kids can have a better life is not selfish. He is doing what his father should have done. There's an entire generation of men who grew up in homes that looked complete from the outside and were crumbling on the inside. They felt the tension. They heard the arguments about money. They watched love die under the weight of bills and resentment. And instead of blindly repeating that pattern, they are trying to break it. That is not weakness. That is the most fatherly thing a man can do before he even becomes one. Some men didn't choose to be childless. They were priced out of the life that they were promised. And nobody, not the government, not the culture, not even the people closest to them, has given them permission to grieve that. Governments have tried everything except the obvious. Baby bonuses, speed dating nights at City Hall, love and marriage courses at universities, cash bounties per child. Every country that tried this got the same result. It didn't move the needle. And it will never move the needle. Because the problem was never that people stopped wanting families. The problem is that families became something only the wealthy can sustain. If they actually want this to change, the answer is not a check. It is not a marketing campaign. It is a stuff that nobody wants to fund because it does not fit on a campaign poster. Wages that keep up with the cost of living. Housing a young couple can reach without drowning. A court system that treats both parents with equal weight. Childcare that does not swallow an entire second income. Healthcare that does not punish you for having a baby in the hospital. And maybe this one is the hardest for them to hear. Stop building machines to replace the very job that young people need to build the kind of stability that makes parenthood possible. But until any of that changes, I need you to hear this clearly. You are not less of a man because you cannot afford to start a family right now. The system did not consult you before it made the life you were promised unreachable. And you do not owe it your future just because it finally realized it needs you. Choosing to build yourself before you build a family is not running away from responsibilities. It is the definition of it. Love should not require sacrifice that you cannot survive. Family should not be a financial gamble. And your worth as a man was never supposed to be measured by what the economy would let you afford. So tell me in the comments, did you choose this? Or did the math choose for you? And what would genuinely have to change before you would feel ready? Because I am listening. It's been your girl Rene here. I'll see you guys in my next video.